Is this the best team that has been assembled around Josh Allen to date? We're exploring that and more today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Folks, welcome in. Time for a little herd mentality, which is the weekly episode where you take control of the discussion and I respond to your takes, questions, comments, whatever you have. Let's dive into it. The first one comes from Tara. Tara says, "Hey, Joe, I saw a video on Monday on the Rich Eisen show where he and Kyle Brandt were talking about if this current team is the best Bills team Josh Allen has played for. Both of them were commenting on how they think the 2021 roster may have been more talented. They named Diggs, Poyer, Hyde, etc. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how this year's roster stacks up against previous year's teams. Personally, this team feels more complete to me. I like the wide receivers and the offensive line depth, and we have a lot of playmaking dudes on defense." I think it's a good question, Tara, and something that's been interesting to me. I caught that clip as well. I would agree with them that 2021 had more established talent. I think you can look at the 2021 roster, which, of course, the 13 seconds here, that's the one we're referring to. That's the more talented roster. But the world is being reintroduced to the Buffalo Bills. And I think what's lost in this entire conversation about where the Bills were in the past 4 or 5 years compared to this year and a transition year is that this is year 8 of Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. 8 years into a build. There's a system in place for player development, for transitioning away from aging players. And that happened. And what people didn't realize is that when the Bills said goodbye to Poyer and Tre'Davious White and Mitch Morse and Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, they didn't know about Christian Benford and Terrell Bernard and Khalil Shakir and James Cook and Spencer Brown and Connor McGovern and Osiris Torrance, and the list goes on and on and on. That's the beauty of having continuity and the right people in place, is that you have a system and guys can get seasoned and groomed and eventually they'll have their opportunity. And I think it's that coupled with the depth and how it's stepped up in moments, right? There hasn't been a ton of significant injuries for the Bills, but there's been a lot of little ones where guys have had to step in for a game or 2 or 3, and you've seen the experience depth within the system be able to show up and help, whether that's a Balin Spector or a Cam Lewis or Ryan Vandemark most recently. You've seen these things happen. Kyer Elam steps in seamlessly for Christian Benford. It's a beautiful thing, right? This is all in place. And the NFL is more used to every 2 to 3 years, you have new GMs and head coaches in place, and you never really get to year 8. Now, there's other instances of it, but it's a unique place for us to be as Bills fans, right? That's definitely part of it. So I think the world's getting reintroduced to the Bills. I would say 2021 was more talented. I would say that this team just feels like it has the right mix of people, the right players on the roster, the right leadership. Josh Allen, Terrell Bernard, the only 2 captains. You don't have 8 of them, right? There's defined leadership on this team. And I think the coaches are really different. You have all of the coordinators are different. That was Heath Farwell, Leslie Frazier, and Brian Daboll. Now you have Joe Brady, Bobby Babich, and Matthew Smiley. Aaron Comer's part of this mix. He matters a ton for this offense in general. Jamil Adai feels like he's been awesome at cornerback. Joe Dana with the safeties. It feels like this coaching staff is just really together. The team feels really together. There's not a lot of ego. There's defined leadership. And there's a standard. And I think that matters a ton, where it doesn't matter who's playing. It doesn't matter. There's a standard of what is expected from that spot on the roster. And I think that standard is set by the players. And when you have that level of player-driven leadership where, hey, this is how we do things, boy, it's a beautiful thing. And I think all of that has really blossomed and kind of peaked right here, right now for this Bills team. I think they're in a really good spot. Tom says, you still indifferent to this outcome? I, sir, am not. I think this win, with the crew they had and the manner in which they won, boosts the team and gives them a blueprint on how to play Kansas City in the playoffs. This feels different than the other regular season victories in the past. Coach McDermott went after it. I loved it and hope it continues. So Tom's referring to kind of the posture I had, I guess, for the game against Kansas City, where I said, I hope the Bills win. I really do. I want this win badly, but I'm pretty indifferent on the result because it hasn't mattered. The Bills have beat Kansas City 3 years prior, now 4 years in a row in the regular season. And those wins have felt very empty to me. I'm extremely happy the Bills won the game. I love how it feels. Boy, I've been swooning all week. I think this Victory Monday is going to last 2 weeks. Trust me, I'm really, really happy about the win. I've really enjoyed the Chiefs fans out there just being very disappointed that anyone in the NFL can have something to be happy about that's not them, right? It's been really ridiculous to see, like, oh, you're celebrating the win? Well, yeah, winning in the NFL is fun. Sorry, dude. Like, why can't other people be happy about anything? It's crazy. So yeah, I've loved all that. I loved how they won. I loved how the defense played. I loved how Bobby Babich went toe-to-toe with Andy Reid. I liked Joe Brady's plan and the patience and coming through with big play. I loved every bit of it. But that indifferent comment is 100% rooted in how empty the regular season wins have been over Kansas City without it mattering in the postseason. The game revealed a lot for sure. There's nothing but good, truthfully, nothing but good. I just want it to matter this time. And that's why it was, I don't know, maybe even a defense mechanism for me saying I'm indifferent because the Bills beat them 3 years in a row and it hasn't mattered in the postseason. I want it to freaking matter. That's what it comes down to for me. Mike says, we see this question a lot when quarterbacks are injured and return. Do they replace an effective backup leading the team to wins while the starter is out? But what about Matt Milano and Dorian Williams? Does Milano get the starting role back the way Williams has been playing? We're talking 11 games of improving performance. I've answered this a few times, but I want to go in on this again. The presence of Dorian Williams is great for the Buffalo Bills. It's a good young developing player, and it allows the Bills to take their time with bringing Matt Milano back in. Obviously, he's not calloused up. He hasn't played football in a long time, and we want him to be able to hit the ground running, and you have a unique opportunity to leverage Dorian Williams and allow Matt Milano to pace himself coming back, and maybe even the first game or two, he's playing a percentage of snaps. Maybe it's 25% the first game and 50% the second game, something like that. But make no mistake about it. When Matt Milano is ready to play 100% of the snaps, he should play 100% of the snaps. Matt Milano is one of the elite playmaking linebackers in the NFL. When he's ready to go, there is no question in my mind that he should play every single snap. That doesn't mean that for a couple of games, it's a reduced role and you onboard him and you take your time. But we cannot forget who Matt Milano is. You go into this year, he's one of the 3 best players on this team. And Dorian Williams, I have raved about the growth. He's still got issues. The coverage stuff is still very, very hit or miss. And I think you allow this to strengthen your depth. Dorian Williams now has a role as the third linebacker when you want to do that, which might make sense against Detroit coming up or Kansas City in the postseason. You're certainly going to have opportunities to use that. Baltimore, right? You might want to use that. And you certainly elevate your special teams with a guy like Dorian Williams now probably playing 100% of those snaps. So this is a really good problem to have. But Matt Milano's awesome. And I want that guy on the field every single snap as soon as he's ready to play, every single snap. All right, folks, on the other side of it, we got plenty more to get into, and including some good questions about the Chiefs game and what things could look like next time around. Be sure to stick with me. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. I personally love that Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks now also offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this season. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Pre-alcohol probiotic drink by Z-Biotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Here's what you do. Step 1, you drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly, pace yourself, hydrate, get yourself a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnNFL at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off your order. All right, folks, let's keep it moving here. The next one comes from Peter. Peter says, it seems to me the word of 2024 is patience. Josh's patience and deliberate play has permeated the team. We get beat up a bit in the first half on defense, but we patiently stick to our plan, adjust, and wear them down in the second half. It seems like there's great trust in the coaching and, more than anything, fundamental belief. Can you add your thoughtful take? And then Peter also followed up with some commentary about patience with player development and how that's really proved to be good for the Bills as well. And I think overall, Peter, you're making a great point. And I think where my mind goes is, first of all, I agree with you. All of what you said, I'm in lockstep with. But the thought that I have thinking about this is, remember being frustrated with Bills teams in the past, maybe like 21, 22, 23, where, and I said this on the podcast quite a few times, I thought they were an entitled football team where they would show up and expect to get a certain result. And as that result was maybe questionably happening, they kind of spiraled. Where this team, to me, feels very focused. They're a tough football team, and they show up every week expecting one thing, is that they're going to have to work and earn it for 60 minutes. I think there's a humility, there's a lack of ego with this team that really feels tangible in a lot of ways. So I think your patience comment is really, really good. But I think the leadership dynamics of this group and how, yeah, I think they expect to win. I think you should expect to win in the NFL. But you should expect to win by earning it and not just because you show up and you're, on paper, a better football team. This is a tough, competitive football team that, boy, it's fun to watch. Bills fan 1988, very similar to a question sent in by Rick, and I think a question that maybe a lot of people have right now. This is what Bills fan 1988 said. In a potential January rematch, what does Kansas City do differently with their schemes? that would challenge the Bills. I could see them blitzing less on third down and trying to get Kelsey the ball more frequently. What's your take? There's a lot to unpack here. I think your comment about blitzing less on third down is interesting. One thing that I got a great question from somebody in the subtext community about comparing the Bills and Josh Allen's success against the Kansas City Blitz compared to the rest of the league this year. Let me share these numbers with you because they're pretty crazy to me. Kansas City, top 3 in blitz rate in the NFL. They blitzed Josh Allen a ton. So in the Josh Allen game versus all the rest, completion percentage when Kansas City blitzed. The rest of opponents, 54.4%. Josh Allen, 69.2. Adjusted net yards per attempt. Everybody else, 3.94 against the KC blitz. Josh Allen, 9.62. Passer rating against the KC blitz this year. Other teams, 73.1. Josh Allen, 117.5. Turnover-worthy throw percentage. The rest of the league, 4.4%. Josh Allen, 0. Completion percentage over expectation. The rest of the league against the KC blitz, minus 8.7%. Josh Allen, plus 3.9%. Sack percentage against the KC blitz. The rest of the league, 11.7%. When KC blitz, Josh Allen, 0. It was a heck of a performance by the Bills offense and Josh Allen dealing with the blitz. So here's what I think Kansas City does differently. On offense, I think the big thing for them is staying committed to the run. And I think the Bills benefited because Isaiah Pacheco, their starting running back, was not available. And so Kareem Hunt, pretty much out of nowhere over the last few weeks, filling in for Pacheco, has become their starter. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire is injured, and I don't think they trust any of their other backs, Samaje Perine or Carson Steele. So having 2 backs that they trust, and potentially 3, I think that'll matter a lot for Kansas City and their commitment to the run game. And then I think some of Kansas City's best plays against the Bills were no-hitch rhythm passes against zone. And I say no-hitch, meaning Patrick Mahomes drops back to pass, and instead of like a bounce at the top of the drop, it's 1, 2, 3 ball out. Like the third step is a transition into the throw. No hitch. And that, when you play zone, you have to process and squeeze and all that stuff. When you can throw those no-hitch passes, which Miami does a ton, it really compromises your zone because you just can't play fast enough. Your play speed just has to change. So I think that combined with more rhythm throws, like they kind of got away from their screen game, their quick rhythm passing, and their run game. And they kind of did something silly and was like, hey, Pat, figure it out, right? That's what they did. And it didn't work. So I think offensively, they'll have more quick passes and their manufactured stuff with more no-hitch throws and being more committed to the run as they have their full stable of backs. Defensively, I think number one is they cannot expose Najee Johnson like they did. That's a depth corner. They've had some injuries at that position, but they can't be asking Najee Johnson to go one-on-one down the field with Amari Cooper. Boy, that was rough. And I mean, so many big plays for the Bills in the passing game came because they knew where Najee Johnson was and went after him in man coverage. So I think that's probably a big part of what they got to figure out the rest of the way. And then I think Kansas City, if you're internalizing their conversations, they probably feel like it's unlikely that the Bills will have that same level of third down success again. I mean, the reality is the Bills were in some very difficult third downs, and they very consistently got out of it, which you just don't expect. So there's probably a little bit of, yeah, they did good against us on third downs in ways that we don't feel is sustainable. So maybe there's not that much to change other than we gotta help out Najee Johnson. We can't ask him to cover Amari Cooper down the field. That's not a fair fight. So that's what's on my mind with that. Paul says, feels like Mack Hollins is having a statistically similar season to what Gabe Davis had last year to this point. How about snaps and involvement in the run game? Contract. Finally, I was wondering, what is your setup for the Bills games? You alluded to watching with your brother and mother. What is the routine? Who else is there? Food, drink, size of TV. Give us a little mental picture. All right, I'll be happy to do that. First of all, let's talk about the first part of your question, which was about Gabe Davis and Mack Hollins. So through 11 games last year, Gabe Davis had 33 catches, 490 yards and 5 touchdowns. Mack Hollins has 18 catches, 224 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So Gabe had a much more production to this point. Where things really got different for Gabe Davis was down the stretch. He, in the final 6 games, he had 12 catches for 256 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think over the course of the year, they might wind up being fairly similar, but Gabe was definitely a more featured part of the offense. And really, his quiet moments really started to come down the stretch, the later part of the season. Gabe also played 88% of the offensive snaps through Week 11. Mack Hollins plays 65% of the snaps. Now, there's obviously more special teams with Mack Hollins, which you have to factor in. And Gabe was in the last year of his rookie deal. So Mack Hollins signed a 1-year, I think, $2.8 million deal. Mack Hollins is a more expensive player. But I said it even when the Bills signed Mack Hollins, I'd rather have Mack Hollins than Gabe Davis. I think Mack Hollins is I think he's a better player. He's just a better player. Runs better routes, better hands, better personality. Run blocker, his for love of the game routes are deliberate. I love having Mack Hollins as your number 4 receiver. But if Gabe Davis was also a number 4 receiver, he'd be much more digestible to me. It was this, I don't know, it's like the people believe the lie that he had the skill set of a number 2 receiver, and he just didn't. He just didn't. And that can't be a high volume piece of your offense when you have the limitations of Gabe Davis. You can't have it. As for watching Bills games, they happen in my living room. I never eat during the game. I always eat before. And usually, like my family, every single Sunday, we have lunch together at noon. Okay. And so it's me, my wife and kids, my brother, his wife, he has 4 kids, my sister, and my mom. And we get together and have lunch at noon. And then the Bills game happens at 1:00, hopefully, or sometimes it doesn't. And if it's always at the game is me, my brother, Frank, and my wife. We're always there. If it's a 1:00 game, you might get my sister-in-law that's also there to watch the game. And my mom and my sister will be there, but they're more like playing with my kids. They don't really, I couldn't tell you the last time they watched the game with me. If it's a 4:00 game, you're going to get me, my wife, and my brother, and maybe my in-laws. Maybe. And if it's a primetime game, it's just going to be me, my brother, and my wife. Now, there's always kids around. I have obviously 2 kids, and my brother will bring some of his kids to play with my kids, right? You never know which combination of the 4 you're getting. So there's always some kids around. I think I have a 70-inch TV. I don't know. I think so. I think it's 70 inches. It's mounted on the wall above the fireplace in my living room. I sit on the couch. We have like I don't know if it's a sectional or like an L-shaped couch. Pretty comfortable. Sit on that. Have my laptop with me so I can send out the subtext and see tweets from beat reporters at the game. Watch a game. That's what I do. And yeah, I don't really eat anything. I might have something to drink. I just like drink would be like Coke Zero or a water, maybe a Gatorade, something like that. So that's the routine. Not too exciting, right? That's what we do. That's what we do. All right, I got a bunch more to get to, including the future of the wide receiver position, Sean McDermott's decision-making, all kinds of stuff. Tyler Bass and that missed extra point. We're talking about all of that here on the other side of it. Be sure to stick with me. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a whole lot more. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. All right, the next one here comes from Gadil, who says, if we take the wide receiver cores the Bills have had over the years, in my opinion, there's always been a player or two the Bills can find an improvement on. But this year it feels different. If you were the GM, would you keep every wide receiver for the next coming years, or would you let one or two of them go. So then the good news is that you do have several receivers that are signed beyond this year. You have Keon Coleman through 2027. You have Curtis Samuel through 2026. You have Khalil Shakir through 2025 under contract right now. And now, obviously, I'll be pounding the table for a Khalil Shakir contract extension in the offseason when he's extension eligible. But you'll have those guys kind of locked in. Your two free agents here are Amari Cooper and Mack Hollins. I think Mack Hollins can sign 1-year deals with the Bills until he's ready to retire. I think he's the absolute dream 4th or 5th wide receiver. It brings so much value in so many different ways. So, yeah, I hope Mack Hollins continues to sign modest deals with the Bills to finish out his career. Amari Cooper is going to be the decision to make, and I like what I've seen. And we really haven't seen him. We've seen him play one game where he was on the team for like 4 days prior and plays. Then the next game is when he has the wrist injury and he kind of sort of plays through it. And then the last one where he's still wearing a cast and has 2 catches, 2 explosive catches down the field. It's like, boy, what does this look like if he's healthy and part of the mix? Now, the other challenge is going to be his age. Not that he's overly old, but, is he a long-term answer? Is he a 2-year, $30 million contract guy? I think you got to figure that out. But it certainly feels like a player I'd like to have back. But I certainly think the rest of this season will define that. But yeah, I like the mix. I like the wide receiver mix. I like the overall complement of weapons. Like out of the bye, thinking about everyone being available, having Coleman and Cooper and Shakir and Samuel and Kincaid and Knox and the running backs and Mack Hollins. Come on now. That don't get you excited. I don't know what does. Adam says, I really liked the drive before the half to get us the go-ahead field goal. It seemed like the Bills went tempo and it was working. Typically, it seems the Bills like to shuffle personnel groupings and get to the line with 12 to 14 seconds left on the clock and let Josh read the defense and alert the play if needed. Is going up tempo more something you think Joe Brady should do over the last 6 games? And what would the benefits be? Is getting Coleman, Kincaid, and a healthier Cooper back more conducive to playing this style at times? Maybe this would give teams something else to have to worry about. Yeah, I like this talking point. The Bills run tempo, no huddle, 6% of plays, which is 23rd in the NFL. Not very high. I think it's good to situationally mix it in, and they have situationally mixed it in. If you remember the Colts game, I thought that was the right plan, is hit them with some tempo. They got a really good front, wear them down, keep them running around. If Buckner and Stewart are off the field, take advantage of that. Yeah, I think you situationally want to always do that. And I definitely think it's something to have in the bag down the stretch to use, right? In some of your bigger games, maybe you unlock it for the postseason. I think you want to be situational with it. To give you an idea, though, Bills at 6% no huddle. Baltimore's at 6.4%. Detroit's at 3.5%. Kansas City's at 1.4%. So it's not like the Bills are in the bottom 25% of the league and sitting there with crappy teams, right? Like they're running tempo at or more than some of the other like top contenders in the league. So I think it's something to keep in the bag, mix it in. They typically do that. And I think that's something I am looking for down the stretch to work in maybe a little bit more. Terry says the missed extra point looked to me like a bad snap and a system issue, not on Bass. Later, I thought I saw another muddy snap, but good kick. Wondering in your review, did you see something Kansas City was doing that may have Ferguson off his game? Maybe some residuals from Kansas City's block from last week, too. I would agree. I went back and watched all of these kicks. I think there were 6 kicks. I think 2 of the snaps, including the missed extra point, were a tick high and a tick in, where Sam had to kind of come for it and bring it back down. I don't think they were very precise snaps. I do think that 4 of them were solid snaps, but 2 weren't. I think the bigger issue on the missed extra point was Tyler Bass's plant foot. You could tell it wasn't pointed straight. It was pointed to the right, which it went massively wide right. And it was pointed that way, and he kind of slipped through it a little bit, and the ball got away from him. I think that was the reason for the missed extra point more so than the snap. It was a good hold by Sam Martin. And one thing that I've had some commentary, people are thinking that kick wasn't missed. It was missed. It was definitely missed. And I think video kind of shows that with the all 22 angles, but also if that kick was through, there wasn't a single player on the field that had any body language for the Bills that it was a made kick, right? Nobody. Everyone it was very much like, yeah, you missed it. So I think you can rest assured that the two people standing directly under the goalpost didn't incorrectly call it a miss. Jennifer says, I have a herd mentality question. Do you think that given the decision to go for it on 4th and 2 in the end of the game and McDermott's post-game comments will prove to be the difference and finally get us over the hump in the postseason if we meet Kansas City again? This philosophical change at the end of the game was great to see. Yeah, I'm very encouraged by it. And I'll say this, he's done this other times, but maybe not as much against Kansas City when you feel like it's probably most meaningful. I really did like McDermott's comments, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard them by now. If not, go find them. He talked about how during their meetings throughout the week, they were prepared for the situation and said, hey, look, based on Andy and Pat's resume of getting that go-ahead touchdown, if they were presented with a situation like this, that they were going to go for it. And I think that's obviously the right move. Take it into your own terms. Don't go up by, what is it? Bills will go up like by 5 or 6 points with a field goal, assuming you make it. And then we know how it ends, right? It's Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce. Nobody wants to see that. If you're not a Chiefs fan, right? I didn't need to see that. Take matters into your own hands. It's Josh Allen. Tell Josh Allen to go get 2 yards and put a football game on ice. That's exactly what he did. So, yeah, I think as those things work out, it probably increases your appetite. But Sean McDermott has been extremely aggressive this season. You look at the metrics, he's, right at the top. Right at the top. It's Dan Campbell with the Lions and Sean McDermott with the Bills in terms of by-the-book, aggressive 4th down decisions. So, yeah, I think this gives some confidence, and hopeful to see that be the case going forward. I think Sean McDermott's always been an aggressive coach, but sometimes not aggressive in the ways that you want him to be. Be aggressive with Josh Allen. Don't be aggressive with your special teams or your defense. Be aggressive with Josh Allen. That's the best thing you have. And I think this was a great example of him doing that. Let me tell you about some content that I have coming out. One thing I'm terrible at is promoting my content, and I do a lot of it. I have 13 podcasts that come out every single week. I have 3-4 articles every single week that comes out. So I want to do a little bit better job on this podcast, at least at the end, telling you what you can expect from me like today. Wednesday, Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs. We are doing a big update on our bold bets. Every single year, we do a bold bet for every team. We're going to do a little check-in and see how we're doing with those preseason predictions. That'll be fun. In the Substack, the Herd Mentality Substack, there's a link in today's show notes. You're going to get Josh Allen weekly. That's my next post there. I do a weekly scouting column on Josh Allen where I take a ton of different metrics. I show you where Josh Allen is relative to the rest of the league. And then I provide analysis on all the different compartments of his game. So that's coming up next year on the Substack. There's a link in today's show notes and everyday show notes for you to be part of that. And then NFL First Read, another podcast that I do. It comes out every Tuesday and Thursday with Brett Whitefield for fantasy points. Our Tuesday episode was really fun. We do a Champs and Chump segment every single week. But then we talked about the AFC in general, right? A big week in the AFC in week 11. So we talk about that. But then we ask ourselves 2 questions. Number one is, who are the actual teams that can win the Super Bowl? We came up with 7 that we thought could actually win the Super Bowl this year. And then from there, we talked about who is the most important non-quarterback on their team that has to stay healthy the rest of the season. So that got into some really good discussions, not only about the Bills, but some of the other top teams. And then you kind of have some epiphanies along the way sorting that out. So check out that episode. And then the Thursday episode of NFL First Read, we're getting into the coaching dynamics of the league and like who the hot candidates are going to be, who should be the next coach of the Jets, who should be the next coach of the Cowboys, the Saints, et cetera, et cetera. Don't miss that episode as well. So there's some other content that you can get from me outside of this daily episode of Locked On Bills. All right, folks, thanks for being here. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.